Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another edition of the Mandatory Live on this Tuesday. No, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday evening. It's
It was
hard to tell.
originally going to be Tuesday, but we had to move it just because
City stuff, city
we
stuff.
both have heat waves right now, so
Yeah,
we're not sure we're gonna actually make it through the episode because
it
of
is
all the
hot.
electricity being used.
Yeah, and it is hot out here. By the way, guys, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Also follow us on our social media channels. We're at the Mandatory TKO. You can find us as well wherever you get your shows, podcasts. We're there as well. You leave a rate and review. Give us a 5-star. That always helps the channel grow. And you can see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us as well. We have a jam-packed show. Later on in the show, we are going to be talking about the Ali Act and how boxing could forever be changed. That's coming up later in the show, but we also got to recap the weekend, and that's going to be the first thing that we do on our docket list. However, also keep in mind, guys, that this is an interactive show, so remember to drop your comments, and we will get to them later on in the show as well. And if you're watching this after, we'll still leave your comments because we do read your comments as well if you leave them after the live. Now, Bryan, you were at the fights. This was Top Rank's last card on ESPN. We still don't really know what's going on with that. Let's actually start off with that. Like, what was kind of the atmosphere like last show on ESPN? What was like for you in that building? It was at the MSG Theater, I believe.
Atmosphere was actually really good. Let me pull up the card too, so we have a little bit of a refresher on what happened since it's been a little bit. But the big thing we're obviously going to talk about is just all the potential ramifications coming from this card, and a little bit on Claressa Shields, who we will touch on, although that was a little bit more expected, a lot more expected in terms of how that went down. I thought she could have gotten the stoppage, but Daniels didn't look like she wanted to mix it up a little bit. Okay, here's the card. Was there covering this. Xander Zayas beats Jorge Garcia Perez. He's now a super welterweight champion. We pretty much were on the nose in terms of what we expected, except for the fact that Xander, I think, won a little bit more convincingly than expected. But we thought it would be in that 116, 112, 117, 111 range. It was that. Xander, I thought, boxed really, really well. There was some measure of holding that people made comments about. I would say all the great ones do it, use it as a defensive tactic. And it's up to Jorge Garcia to create the separation that he wants in that instance and to get Xander Zayas off of him. And it's on the referee. It's at their discretion ultimately to be like, hey, we're taking a point away. Xander got like one warning in like the 11th round. But ultimately that was like later on in the fight. I thought he boxed really, really well. That's the best footwork that I've seen from him in terms of his performance. His jab was really on point. He was mixing up the jab too. Double jab, jab to the body, jab to the head, jab to the body twice, to the head twice, continually moving the entire time. It was very accurate, especially compared to Jorge Garcia by the numbers. Landing uppercuts as well. Like it was just very good work, I thought. And the question that will come from it is basically, hey, will he be able to do this when he eventually faces, in theory, a Virgil Ortiz, a Sebastian Fedora, a Bakram Murtazayev, none of which I think will happen next, which we'll get into. But I came away impressed with how he handled the performance. I thought he was a little bit more dominant than expected. He outlanded Garcia every round, both by percentage and by just volume. And I thought it was a very good performance overall.
Yeah, I think it was a good performance for Xander Zayas. I kind of expected it to go the exact way that it did that night. And as for the holding, like when you clinch, it's an art. Like, some guys do it way too much and it can get a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
But like there is a tactic to it. So the thing about Xander Zayas is he's always going to get a little bit more criticism. But nonetheless, like it looked great on TV. It looked like a lot of Puerto Rican fans showed out. And I like the way that Xander boxed in this fight. I thought, when he was using the double jab, he was getting to the body. All I was thinking about is just keep on working at the body because you're going to get him. Because at some points, I thought Jorge Garcia got a little bit sloppy as well. And I was really thinking at some point, I was like, if Xander Zayas keeps going to the body, there could possibly be a stoppage because those shots were hurting him. I will say this: Xander Zayas is still a young. What is he, like 23 years old?
He will be 23 in September. So the next time we see him in a ring, basically,
Yeah.
3 years old.
So let's just say he's 23 already. He's not even grown into the man that he will be in a few years when he'll have his real power. Like, I don't think we've seen Xander Zayas' power yet. But what I will say is that he looked big in that ring. Yes.
Some people think he's ready for 160. I'm
Yeah.
like, yo, not yet, but
I mean, I think 154 is going to be a great start because we're going to see him fight better boxers, the top guys, and then we can really take a look at how good Xander Zayas is. But Jorge Garcia, that's a tough fight. He's tough. That's why Xander was not able to get the stoppage in this fight. But nonetheless, I thought it was really impressive, and he looked big in that ring, man. Like, he really, when I saw him in that ring, I was like, wow. Like, I was like, I think he got bigger from the last time that he was in the ring. Like, he just looked massive, standing next to Jorge Garcia. And obviously there was a height difference and everything like that. But I thought it was a very good performance by him. Now he has the WBO title. He has the WBO title now at 154 pounds. And the biggest question is, what's next for him? Bryan, who do you think he should fight next? Because obviously there has been talk about a few guys and some names have come out. Josh Kelly has come out. I think it's last time I checked, Jerome Boots Ennis was ranked number 4 by the WBO at 154 pounds. But okay,
you are correct.
Yes, and I thought that was weird. Whatever. But these are the champions, as you can see at the top at 154 pounds. But we were hearing some rumors about Josh Kelly.
Could I just say this? Press conference too. I keep calling it a press conference. It was a scrum. It was just a scrum after the fight. Xander had a couple interesting comments where he said multiple times, essentially, you can't run for me anymore now that I have a title, implying that there's no running from him, because people think like Jesus in the comments is like he's ducking the top 154-pound guys, and it's like he just got the title. He just beat the guy that beat the supposed boogeyman, quote unquote, of 154 that everyone was supposed to be fucking scared of in Charles Conwell. And everyone was like, Charles Conwell was going to beat the shit out of Xander Zayas, and he couldn't beat Jorge Garcia. And Xander Zayas beat Jorge Garcia a lot more convincingly than Garcia even beat Charles Conwell, and effectively just kind of beat the guy who beat the guy, because Conwell was the number 1 contender at a point and fought Garcia and ultimately squandered that opportunity. And then Xander makes a good point where he's like, yo, Sebastian Fundora wants his belt back, where he shouldn't have vacated it to begin with, because the reason I have this title is because Sebastian Fundora vacated the title so that I could fight for it. Like Sebastian Fundora had the opportunity because Xander Zayas was his number 1 contender. He was the mandatory challenger. And ultimately, Sebastian Fundora decided, I'm going to fight Tim Tszyu. So the WBO was like, give me that title. And then Xander Zayas ends up fighting for the title because WBO in Top Rank, and he was the number 1 contender. The other thing is Virgil Ortiz allegedly offered a fight to Xander Zayas, or Xander Zayas accepted a fight. Xander Zayas' recollection of that is he accepted a fight with Virgil Ortiz, as we talked about here at the time, and Virgil Ortiz decided instead to fight Israel Madrimov. Now, that I thought was a smart business decision. Fight the guy who just fought Terrence Crawford competitively, try to beat him a little more convincingly. He didn't, but he did beat him. And then angle for a potential bigger fight after that. We have yet to see the result of that piece of it, but Virgil Ortiz was like, we have bigger fish to fry. Your time will come at Xander Zayas. So Xander Zayas has been trying to get these fights while not even being a champion. So he's saying, because he has a title, that people can't run for him. That being said, I don't think he's fighting any of those dudes in his next fight, because the way that I think this shakes out, and I said this in my post-fight sort of commentary on my channel, where Xander Zayas has the WBO title. He talked about returning in December. And what I think will happen, this is what I said at the time, what I think will happen is Boots Ennis and Josh Kelly will be elevated to fight for the mandatory spot for the WBO. And then the WBO comes out, or the report comes out that may happen. So I think that's what's going to end up happening, although Josh Kelly's team seems pissed off about the offer that they've gotten, saying that they're getting offered a lot less money than they have even in previous fights, and that the fight would be in Philadelphia, despite the fact that he's higher ranked than Jerome Boots Ennis. But, Boots Ennis is obviously more popular than Josh Kelly. But ultimately, Shantelle, to answer, I think what happens is those two fight, comes to some sort of agreement. The winner becomes the mandatory. Xander Zayas, in the meantime, fights somebody else. We can throw out some names. I'd love to see what you think for who he should fight in the WBO rankings in December. And then from there, I think he fights, let's say, Boots Ennis next spring or something like that. Like maybe that's the route before we start talking about some of the other guys, because he's going to have to defend against a mandatory at some point. But I don't think a mandatory is going to be available by December, because we still need Josh Kelly and Boots Ennis to sort of work out their agreement. I don't know if there's going to be a purse bid situation. We'll see. We're not far along enough for this to warrant a purse bid, but we know how boxing is, and this might not happen till the fall. So I think Xander could just take a different fight, maybe a less risky one, quote unquote, than a Boots Ennis would be.
Well, he has to defend his title at least one time before he has a big fight. And I think usually when that happens, you're not going up against like one of the top guys, right? You're going to have to defend your title. And I take a look at those names, and the one that pops out to me is Erickson Lubin. And I think that's a very tough fight for Xander Zayas. And that's the fight that I would want to see, right? There's also another guy like Jesus Ramos would be very interesting.
Dangerous.
I think the thing about Keith Thurman is like, we haven't seen one time in a minute. And I don't want to see one time come back and fight Xander Zayas. I mean, it could be good for him, but it's just like, I don't really care. That's not going to show me anything. Like, that won't show me anything for Xander Zayas, because we haven't seen Keith Thurman yet. We don't even know what Keith Thurman looks like. So it's like, if we're just trying to give him like a layup, like, okay, fight this guy that's like hasn't fought in like the longest time.
To your point, because when we saw Keith Thurman earlier this year against Brock Jarvis, it was like for a couple rounds, and he just dominated somebody who clearly shouldn't have been in the ring with him, even though Keith Thurman was coming off a long layoff. But to be fair, he's kind of the one that I want to see fight Xander Zayas.
I think you do though, but that's also that's a little bit biased though. It's a little bit biased, Brian, because obviously like you're gonna rock with Xander, right? But that's a fight that Xander should win at this. Keith Thurman is old as time. Keith Thurman is washed.
No, but I think, but here's my case. One,
it won't tell us anything, bro.
I disagree. I think one, Erickson Lubin's probably going to fight Bakar Murtazayev because he's the number one contender for the IBF title, and Murtazayev can't get a fight, so you might as well fight the mandatory challenger
because he's like the boogeyman in this division.
Like, yeah, or could be.
We need more. We need to learn more from him. But from what I've seen, like he could be the boogeyman of this division, in my opinion.
Could be Jesus Ramos. I stay away from Ramos, to be honest. And here's the thing with Keith Thurman. I think Keith Thurman's actually a pretty good barometer to see, like, all right, how good are you? Like, I don't think Keith Thurman's washed. I just don't know what he looks like against a champion level guy, which we have to call Xander Zayas now.
Okay, bring up Keith. Okay, you love using your screen. Bring up Keith Thurman's resume. Let's go through it. Let's go through it and let's talk about the layoffs. Let's talk about the injuries. Yeah, let's go take a look, because I'm not saying one time isn't one time. One time was one of my favorite boxers. Okay, like I was a big Keith Thurman fan, but he wasn't as active the last 4 years, and I think that's a big deal. He also pulled out of a big fight as well. Right. So let's just go back. Like, see, so we saw him fight in March. And before that, we hadn't seen dude in 3 years. And like, what are we talking about here? And he fought Mario Barrios, and we could say he's the weakest champion. Okay. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, this is okay. Sure. Like, one time could come back and he could fight a guy like Xander Zayas, but I don't think I would learn too much from that fight. And if we're talking about people wanting to stop hating on Xander Zayas, that's not the fight that's going to do it, in my opinion.
I disagree. You
think that's the fight where people are going to be like, oh my God, yeah, like Xander's that guy after he beats Thurman?
Xander Zayas, for whatever reason, is very polarizing. I think it's because Top Rank is pushing him to be the next Puerto Rican star, and that's always polarizing because people hold Felix Trinidad and Miguel Cotto in very high regard. And I don't think he's either of those dudes stylistically either. So if he had more knockout power, I think people would leave him alone. Because Edgar Berlanga, while he had knockout power, you could also see the flaws that he had as he was coming up. I think Keith is a very interesting fight. It's not the best name. Foxy is fucking cooking here. Keith, once upon a time.
That's what it is, bro. Thank you, Foxy. Thank you.
Thurman's experience is invaluable. That's the thing too. Like you can legitimately, let's say Top Rank goes on TNT. Let's just say, because that's been rumored. Maybe it's Turner. Maybe
no.
it's...
This is a good one. Ryan Shepherd. One time versus Arrow, loser retires. Yes, thank you. That's what it should be. But yeah,
I think Xander versus Keith Thurman is very interesting. First of all, biggest name on his resume. Names matter when you're building your resume, when you're young like that.
Because who else has he fought?
Biggest name. I think Keith Thurman probably beats Jorge Garcia right now, as much as I do respect Jorge Garcia. Like I think he probably beats Jorge Garcia right now. I think he beats... Like, are you convinced that Charles Conwell beats Keith Thurman? Because I'm not.
No, right I wouldn't even have taken that before Conwell.
So that's what I'm saying. Lost. I think that's a real, like, if I'm Bob Arum, that's probably the route that I go. There's another, and in terms of just money, just purely financial, like that's a fight you could Top Rank on TNT, Zayas versus Thurman, 11 p.m. You could also put this in Florida because Keith Thurman's from Florida.
I'm
you could
not
put
saying
this
that
in Orlando, Kissimmee.
But I'm not saying that it wouldn't generate attention, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't generate being seen as a fight that is going to pull a lot of people in and make it want to watch. I just think that Keith Thurman isn't that same guy that we were calling one time a few years ago. He's just not. And so if we're going to talk, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to like be hard on Xander Zayas here, but the issue is that people, even after this performance, Bryan, are being extra critical of Xander Zayas. And if we want that criticism to come from here all the way to here, fighting a guy like Keith Thurman isn't going to be the one where people are like, you know what? I think Xander Zayas could beat any of the top guys now. That's not going to be the fight that's going to do it, in my opinion. I think Erickson Lubin is the tougher fight. Would you disagree with me? Do you think, what is the tougher fight? Keith Thurman, as Foxy said, Keith once upon a time Thurman, or Erickson Lubin? Which one is the tougher fight?
Keith Thurman, because Erickson Lubin should have lost to Jesus Ramos and got a gift. And has been knocked out before, multiple times.
Okay.
Keith Thurman for his resume and the inactivity, we've only seen him lose once. It wasn't in dominant fashion. It was too Manny Pacquiao. Granted, it was 3 fights ago.
And he got dropped in that fight. He got dropped in that fight.
He did in round 1.
How old was Manny? Like 40?
40, yes.
So he got dropped by a 40-year-old man. And
40-year-old Manny Pacquiao was still good. He was
decent, but he still didn't have the same pop. He was decent. He didn't have the same pop though, and he did still. We could see that it was a little bit of a downward trend.
I'll grant you that Keith Thurman is not what he was before. I still think Keith Thurman beats a lot of these dudes.
I'm not saying that. My argument is just that I just don't think him beating Keith Thurman, because I think if him and Keith Thurman were to fight, he would beat Keith Thurman. I just don't think that's the fight where people are going to stop criticizing him. I
don't think that matters, because people are going to criticize him regardless. Like, who gives a shit? Like, who cares?
I think it's a little bit more. He needs that fight where people are going to like actually jump on the bandwagon and be like, you know what?
I don't think he does. I think he just needs to win. And I think here's the thing. Here's the other route you can go. If he fights Sergey Bohachuk, who lost to Virgil Ortiz, and not convincingly, because remember, he dropped Virgil Ortiz twice. And this is why I don't know why a lot of people suggest that Virgil Ortiz is like going to retire fucking undefeated and never going to lose. Like, he's been in a couple of close fights already and against really tough dudes, but like, you pay for that later on in your career, generally speaking. If Xander Zayas picks him, people are just going to say, oh, he's fighting a Virgil Ortiz retread. And if he beats him more convincingly, if you like Xander Zayas, you'll be like, well, he beat him more convincingly than Virgil Ortiz did. And if he doesn't, and if it's a split or majority decision, you're going to be like, oh, he couldn't even beat a guy convincingly that Virgil Ortiz had already beat.
But here's the thing. Here's the path,
and it's not a fight. If Bob Arum's looking at that, Bob Arum's going to be like, Keith Thurman sells way more. Like,
actually, I don't think so, because here's the path, right? If he would sell more than an Erickson Lubin and Xander Zayas fight, but if he was to fight a guy like Bohachuk, right? If he was to fight a guy like him and say, like, let's just say he won that fight, then there's a path where it's like, okay, well, Virgil Ortiz beat him, Xander Zayas beat him. Now let's make the super fight of Virgil Ortiz and Xander Zayas, because that's the fight that I think everybody wants. Like, am I wrong?
But but Virgil Ortiz doesn't even have a world title. He has an interim title, so he has to fight Sebastian Fundora first.
Yeah,
like,
but I still think that's the fight to make in this division, though. Or he could fight Sebastian Fundora as well, but I would rather see Virgil Ortiz and Xander Zayas. Like, that's the fight for me that I want to see next year. I don't know if it happens next year, but that's the fight that I want to see.
Me too. We're in agreement. I'm talking about December. And specifically December, I do not think Virgil Ortiz. Like, I'd be stunned if we're going right into Virgil Ortiz.
That's not going to happen. He has to defend his title against someone that he's probably going to win against.
So this is where
if I'm a boxing promoter, I'm not putting Xander Zayas against one of the top guys like a Virgil Ortiz. That's not the way to do it. He has to defend his title against a guy that he is possibly going to beat.
Right. So it's good. And again, I think Josh Kelly and Boots Ennis will probably fight each other to determine who's going to get this vacant #1 spot to challenge Xander Zayas next year. So that's the other thing. Xander Zayas, like, in order to beat Virgil Ortiz, he might have to beat Boots Ennis first, depending on how this goes, assuming Boots Ennis beats Josh Kelly. And I think we agree that he should. So,
but is Boots even going to stay at 154 pounds? Because there's all that talk that he's going to move up to 160.
Well, he has to get to 154 first.
Yeah.
Because he technically hasn't even made his debut at this weight class. But all of these dudes they might all go to middleweight around the same time. As somebody told me a couple days ago, which I thought was a fascinating point, because it's like, damn, you're right. Because a lot of these dudes are big. Pause. And in looking at just what the fights could be moving forward, I think Bohachuk is a great choice. I think Keith Thurman is an interesting one. I don't know if people would give him shit for fighting Madrimov. I think they would, but I think
it'd be a good fight. I think that would be actually a good fight, because Bud fought him and Bud beat him.
And then if you go down
he's a tricky fighter. He's a tricky fighter too. I actually wouldn't be mad. I'd rather see him against Madrimov than Keith Thurman.
I think that's fine. To me, if I'm just playing boxing promoter,
yeah,
I'm doing the Keith Thurman.
Xander Zayas is boxing promoter. If you're playing, not just any promoter, if you're playing Xander Zayas is boxing promoter, then yeah, you look at Keith Thurman and you're then like, I'm looking okay, at Keith Thurman. Then yeah, that makes the most sense to me.
And Keith Thurman, like, there's something to be said. You know this because it happens all the time. Like, veteranship, craftiness, that just the years of experience. Somebody mentioned in the comments, like, Keith has a lot of like that experience that can get you ready for some of these other dudes. Like, I think it's going to be a tougher fight than you may think. I don't think Keith Thurman is like capital W washed. You know what I mean? Like, it could be like when Kobe stopped dunking and he started killing people in the mid-range.
No. Like, what are you
such
a
Kobe stat. I knew you were gonna get tight.
No. That's don't compare one time to that. Come on, bro. I will say this.
Keith Thurman was the best welterweight in the world.
Dude, I'm not hating on Keith Thurman. I just don't think Keith Thurman is one time anymore. Like, that's my issue, right? So it's like he's just not Keith Thurman anymore. And unless he comes back in the ring and has like a tune-up fight and then fight Xander Zayas, like, you know what I mean? But that's probably not going to happen. He already kind of had his tune-up fight. But I think if you're Xander Zayas, you're taking on any of these guys, but it's going to be one of those guys that are in the WBO rankings before he has a bigger fight, for sure.
What do you think of this comment too, HLD? Bohachuk got whooped by Michael Fox. That was controversial because he got the unanimous decision. A lot of people felt like Michael Fox got jobbed there. I do think, like, okay, that's why if you're a promoter, you might go that route also if you're looking at a voluntary title defense. I feel like it should be one of those two guys. But also the trash talk between Thurman and Xander. Thurman especially, like, he could bring something out of him, and then you look back at Xander Zayas' career years from now, you'd be like, yo, remember when he fought Keith Thurman? Like, it was a necessary experience for him. I don't know. I think,
don't get me wrong. If he was to fight Keith Thurman, like, because I've always liked one time, I would be interested in the fight. Like, I think that fight would sell. My only concern is, and you don't think it's a big deal, but I just think that I feel bad for a guy like Xander Zayas just because he gets so much extra pressure. Like, nothing is good enough. Nothing is ever good enough when he wins convincingly. It's always some type of criticism. And it's like, unless he beats a bigger name, and Keith Thurman is a big name, but I just don't think it's the name that he once had before. And that's my only thing. So after he beats Keith Thurman, people are still going to be like, well, who has he fought? I guarantee you. I guarantee you people are still going to say that. And then they're going to go on his list and be like, well, he fought at Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman was like washed at the time, so he hasn't really fought anybody. Like, what? I can't deal with that. Like, I can't. That's literally what's going to happen. But, and then they're going to be like, well, he hasn't fought anybody. And then like we're going to be back here looking. You're going to bring up your screen. You're going to bring up the damn rankings, and we're going to go through this again. And so that's my only thing. And it's not me. I really like Xander Zayas, but I feel like he's in a very tough position because of all the pressure of being, Puerto Rico's next boxing superstar. And like, I feel like he takes so much more heat that I think he takes on more heat than Edgar Berlanga ever did. And that's because people really
more expectations.
Yes, more. And it's tough. Like, it comes with the game, but it's just like, he's never, okay, this is a great comment. Thank you, Jesus. Just fight Fundora. I would love this fight. I would love that fight as well. Well, what would you feel about that fight? Obviously, it won't happen this year, right?
Yeah.
But
if at all, again, Virgil, if Virgil fights Fundora next because he's the interim champion, he might not have to fight Fundora at all. Maybe it depends. I'd be stunned if that happens next, but I would love that fight. Would love that fight.
Who would win? Because Fundora has looked better, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was a big time Fundora hater for like 5 years. Like, I'm not joking. Even when he beat Tim Tszyu the first time, I was like, Tim Tszyu had that big cut. Like, if Tim Tszyu didn't have that cut, he would have won. And then recently, I was like, you know what? Fundora has gotten better. He has changed up his style, and he was really impressive in his last fight.
Maybe.
This is really interesting. HLD, good friend of the show right here. He says Fundora is a duck. How do you feel about that, Brian?
I don't want to call any of these dudes a duck, but he had the WBO title. And Xander was number one contender, and he decided to fight Tim Tszyu again. And Tim Tszyu, after he got stopped by Murtazayev, like a lesser Tim Tszyu than the Tim Tszyu he fought the first time, where we both were like, man, if Tim Tszyu didn't get that cut, maybe that fight changes things. Whereas this last time, we were both like, maybe Tim Tszyu could win this, but
we still didn't fully believe in Fundora. I hate to admit it.
Even now, I'm like, Fundora, if he fights Virgil Ortiz, I think overwhelmingly people are going to say, oh, Virgil Ortiz is going to beat him.
I'm taking Virgil. I would take Virgil Ortiz right now, and I would bet the knockout.
I would take Murtazayev, and I would take Xander over Sebastian Fundora, even still.
Yeah.
Because, again, like, Sebastian Fundora, like, Tim Tszyu, if Tim Tszyu is going to win the fight, he's just going to he's a one-dimensional guy, all due respect. Like, he's very talented, skilled on the inside, but he's a brawler. He's just straight inside, just like very good at bar fighting. That's what he is. Xander Zayas is not going to fight Sebastian Fundora in that way. You know what I mean? This is just totally different. Like, he's the only one of these dudes who has a completely different style. It's not to say that he's better than all of them. The thing is, all of these dudes at the top, and by all these dudes, I literally mean Virgil Ortiz, Sebastian Fundora, Bakar Murtazayev specifically. In this context, they all have finishing ability. They're all great on the inside. They all want to just bring it to you. Xander Zayas, of the three, is the best at moving around, using the ring, counterpunching, footwork, all-around boxing ability. Where he's the weakest at is finishing ability. So it's going to be like, could he stand up to and outbox these guys, or are they going to break him down?
I think he could outbox Fundora.
And that's my point. I think Fundora
body shot, and also Xander Zayas is a great body puncher. Like, we saw that on display.
Fundora is the one of the three where I'm like, I'm comfortable with Xander Zayas in that matchup. The other two, it kind of depends. Although I want to see more from Murtazayev. Like, he just hasn't been super active lately.
Yeah, we need more of, like, we have a sample size of what we've seen from him, but we need to see a little bit more. But if I'm looking at Fundora right now, I'm taking Virgil over him. And if Fundora was to fight Xander Zayas, I think I'd take Xander Zayas as well. And that's just me. Now, when it comes to Xander Zayas against Virgil Ortiz, I'm going with Virgil.
A lot of people will.
I'm going with Virgil, but I'm not even sure about that pick. Because, like, the thing about Virgil Ortiz that I really like is that he's imperfect. He makes mistakes, but then all of a sudden, like, I like that, though. I like the fact that he makes mistakes and can figure it out. Like, it's about being resilient, right? Like I don't know. I know that he makes mistakes and like he's gotten dropped before, but he's been able to figure it out. And I love that because I think that's what makes a champion. But I would pick Virgil Ortiz right now, but I just wouldn't be totally sure. I need to see a little bit more. And that fight's not going to happen till like next year, if it even happens next year, but it's a very, very interesting fight. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say Murtazayev beating Erickson Lubin is also not a given. And if Lubin wins this, then that is very interesting. I think matchup wise, he's going to be a problem for dudes. I don't know if he can beat them though, because he's been chinny in the past as well. I was actually at the fight where Charlo knocked him out in the first round and covered it, and then there were a couple different incidents in the arena. One of them, I think people saw on the broadcast, where somebody from one of the teams threw a chair at the other. And it was bad. And then there was more to it than that. That I don't know if I've said it before. I'm sure I've written it before. But yeah, it was a crazy night. It was one of the crazier boxing nights that I've been around. HLD in the comments says Fundora's been knocked the fuck out by Brian Mendoza. That's right. We both went into that fight. We both bet Mendoza to win by knockout.
I remember. That was a great fight. I was really happy for Brian Mendoza on that fight, actually. I was really happy for him.
And Tim broke Fundora's nose into pieces just 2 rounds. And then the second fight, Tim was landing bombs on Fundora before he quit. Now, that's interesting. I thought that we both were watching the fight, Shantelle. We were like, yo, Tim Tszyu quit. And he was actually like starting to like really like land on Sebastian Fundora at that point.
Yeah. You know what? I just don't think Tim Tszyu, like, he hasn't been the same since he got knocked out.
Yeah.
He hasn't been the same. Yeah. And that happens, right? Let's go to HLD. Who says Ortiz is a one-dimensional fighter with only one offensive skill, come forward and throw. One defensive skill is his big head. That's it. That's why I like him. Like
you love that style of fighting.
That's the only style of fighting that I know, HLD.
It's stunning to me that you love Andre Ward the way that you do.
Yeah.
And yet
I like different styles. I like Money Mayweather too, right?
Yeah.
But just the style of fight, like even when I'm fighting, I can't fight off my back foot. I'm terrible defensively. I'm gonna get punched in the face.
I'm comfortable,
but I'm gonna keep on coming forward, keep on getting hit. Like I can't fight off the back foot. My footwork, it's like I got cement foot. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just got no foot movement. I'm like Isaac Cruz.
Oh, you would hate me. You would hate me. I move around a lot. I just like come forward, like head movement, just come forward. But I got a nasty left hook that can knock you out. That's the thing. I have a crazy left hook, and so, anyways, that's not the point. Let's go to Foxy though, because this is a good comment. Foxy, by the way, good friend of the show, says Josh Kelly quite high in the rankings here with the WBO and IBF, but the truth is he's just not good enough. Everyone should be looking to take that fight next. I don't think Josh Kelly is good enough either. Foxy is one of my favorite commenters because despite being from the UK, he'll be like, listen, Josh Kelly ain't shit. Lawrence Okolie ain't shit. Like he'll tell us like who's like legitimately like good coming out from the UK. Like for example, we talked about why is his name escaping me? Sam Noakes.
Yeah.
And we're all in agreement, like, oh, like the fight against Abdullah Mason, like that we kind of think Mason will win, but that's not a gimme. Like, but Foxy's like, yo, like, yeah, go fight Josh Kelly. And look, that's the thing too. If I'm Xander Zayas and Josh Kelly doesn't, like, if Boots ends up, what if Boots fights let's just say Boots fights somehow Virgil Ortiz for the interim championship before the winner fights Sebastian Fundora. Fundora fights Keith Thurman, and Xander Zayas is like, all right, cool, then I'll fight Josh Kelly. Where that kind of works out for everybody. I think if you're Xander, it's like, okay, cool. This will get me ready maybe for something else. And also Ryan Shepard suggests a Conor Benn, speaking of UK people. So what do you think about any of those? Although we don't know what weight Conor Benn is going to be sitting at moving forward, but still.
I just think Josh Kelly's a little bit overrated. Like when I saw that, I kind of laughed. But obviously I would do something like that. I think the guys that I named are the guys that he should fight. Like, I wouldn't be mad if he fought Keith Thurman, but I do like Madrimov. I think that would be a really good fight. I think Erickson Lubin is a tough fight. I saw some hateful comments against Erickson Lubin in not hateful, but people were not feeling me saying Erickson Lubin was a. They were just talking about Erickson
Lubin.
Lubin
had his face broken. And
yeah,
layoffs.
But
he's had layoffs too.
I think yeah, of course yes, but like I think Erickson Lubin is a tough fight, and I think that would be a very tough fight for a guy like Xander Zayas. But like I said, I think the fight that we all kind of want to see is him up against Virgil Ortiz or Sebastian Fundora. I do want to go over to HLD's comment and just he said that's a crush on Ward, not his fighting skill. Let's be real. It's actually not, but he is from Oakland, so I will naturally always root for him. That's the only thing.
Because we've spent so long on this, and we got to get to other shit.
And that's how you know that this mandatory episode or the show is geared also towards a lot of you Puerto Ricans because we just spent almost 40 minutes on Xander Zayas. We were not supposed to do that.
Okay, before we move on, prediction on who he fights in December. Xander Zayas, assuming he does come back in December. Prediction on who we think it is.
I think it might be Josh Kelly.
You're gonna say Josh Kelly. I'm gonna say it's Sergey Bohachuk.
I wouldn't be mad at that.
I hope it's Keith Thurman for entertainment value, and because I think that is a sellable fight to me. It's a fun fight. And I think people will be like, yo, Thurman could expose him with the experience or whatever.
They could do that fight in New York and it would be big.
Or Florida. I think you could do it in Florida too, because Keith Thurman's from there.
HLD said that, by the way, our friend on the show, HLD said, yeah, like you could make a trip out of it. Even if it was like in Puerto Rico or something like that. That would be a big fight in Puerto Rico.
I think Sergey, I would love that because Keith Thurman, he would eat that up. Like that's the thing. He's a character. Like
he can sell it. Yeah,
he's interesting. Like he's still, even in 2025, one of the most interesting guys in the sport to me. Top 20, 15, something like that. Like the way he was even selling the Brock Jarvis fight and the trash talk he had leading up to it. I'm like, yo, this guy's great. I wish he fought more in his prime. He could have been a Hall of Famer.
It was just injuries. It was just injuries,
man.
Right. That's kind of what happened to him. So,
but
awesome.
Guys, I loved Keith Thurman in his prime. He was awesome in his prime.
But guys, please drop your comments. Let us know what you think about Xander Zayas, how he fought in this past fight. Also, let us know who you think he should fight coming up next, or what his next two fights should be and what route he should go. You should drop your comments. Let us know because we will read them out throughout the show. But also, if you leave this comment after the show is not live anymore, we're still going to read the comments and we might bring it up on a later episode. Brian, I think we got to talk. Should we stick with this card still? Should we talk about?
Let's do Vargas. Let's do Emiliano. I know you want to get to Emiliano Vargas, so we have to tee you up for this.
This was nasty. One of the best knockouts that I think I've seen this year. What do you think, Brian? Like the power was crazy.
It's up there for me.
Hold on, is he in the rankings?
Yes.
Okay. Use your computer. Use your set computer in the rankings for what you do. There you go, Brian.
So
this is Brian's favorite part of the show, by the way, guys.
It is. Weight is he again? Is it a super lightweight or lightweight?
It's super lightweight, I believe.
Is he not in the rankings?
That's what I thought. Well, he's 15-0, isn't he? With 13 by knockout.
That's why I'm like, I could have sworn he's not ranked. Hold on.
He should. Well, this is why I wanted to ask you this.
What he bet? Well, to be fair, they might not have updated these yet. Super lightweight. He did start at lightweight. That's why I thought.
It's super lightweight though that he should be ranked in.
40 now. It's funny. He was interested in the winner of Regis Prograis and Jojo Diaz, which is a fight that's supposedly coming up soon.
Which, by the way, I'm actually very excited for that fight. Although I do feel like
that's a fight right there, and that's not even shade. Like I love
that fight. Yeah. I love that fight. And so, but here's the thing: I think Jojo Diaz was at his best when he was fighting at 130. Jojo Diaz was. Ranked? This is what I'm saying. Like this is updated, right? It must be because Xander Zayas was updated.
Well, that's the champion, so that's a little different. They didn't update the rankings underneath because that's on the organizations and stuff. To your point, though, Jojo Diaz beat Tevin Farmer when he was at 130, and Tevin Farmer, that was when he was tearing up. Like everyone, the IBF was sending at him. He was like the most active champion in the sport at a period of time, and he beat him convincingly. And then Tevin Farmer was on like a 3.5-year layoff or whatever it was before he came back and, fought his way back to contendership. Jojo Diaz, unfortunately, gave up his title on the scale because he was overweight, and then he went on a big losing streak. So I actually think if Regis Prograis doesn't win that fight, then he's done. Like, he should beat Jojo Diaz. That said, Emiliano Vargas versus the winner of that, sign me up.
Yeah, we said the same thing. Like, I would love to see that fight. So Emiliano Vargas, to me, he's really coming up, and I think he has all the skill sets, and he has the superstar qualities, Brian. He has it all. He checks off every box. And the power, this was one of the best knockouts this year. It seemed like he had a rock in his fist. Like, I don't know, Brian. Like, this knockout was crazy, and it was like in slow motion. And I think, honestly, a lot of people should be watching out for Emiliano Vargas in this weight class. But I think a lot of these guys are going to be moving up too. Right? Like, by the time Emiliano Vargas gets in the top 5 of these rankings, like, a lot of these guys will have moved up, like Teofimo Lopez, right? Subriel Matias, all these guys. I think maybe, like, I don't know. Do you think Gary Antoine Russell is going to move up to 147 at some point?
Somebody's going to fight Subriel Matias first. Because Subriel Matias is trying to fight everybody. He's trying to fight Hitchens. He made like a supposedly handshake $100,000 bet. They were talking. They had this very ring tried to say was heated back and forth. It looked super respectful. Like, these guys are like, they have this understanding, like, yeah, we're going to fight each other. You know what I mean? I could, in fact, play the video if we want to.
By the way, I think we should just like add like a Puerto Rican flag in our logo at this point, because now we're talking about Subriel Matias.
Well, he's in the division, and it's
I know. I don't mind. Like, I'm a big fan of Subriel Matias as well, and even though
a lot of Puerto Rican boxers, also
I do. I've said this before. I even like the Puerto Rico baseball jerseys. I said this to you. They're my favorite.
Oh, World Baseball Classic 2026. Yeah. I can't wait. I'm gonna try to get out there for some of that. They're doing it at a bunch of different places. Ryan Shepard says, I think they said he'll be ranked in the next rankings. Yeah, whenever they update, it's not always after a fight. Organizations tend to do this once a month, so maybe we're just not at that period yet for the WBO. As a matter of fact, boxing scene.
They're always on top of it, though. Boxing scene does a great job, guys.
Yeah, WBO updated July 22nd, so that means we're probably not going to get another one for a couple weeks at least.
Or maybe even on August 1st.
The WBA looks like they're going to get theirs soon because they just did theirs July 1st. The IBF shortly after. So we'll see. In the sport, it varies. But Emiliano Vargas, the reason why I looked at the WBO is because the top rank. Yeah. But like, so Real Matias, to bring it back, he wants to fight Teofimo and Gary Antoine Russell and Richardson Hitchens probably at the same time, on the same night, on the same card. He doesn't give a shit. So I think with Emiliano Vargas, though, there's a lot of fights you can give him. The Regis Prograis one,
that's the one that I want to see him against, or even Jojo Diaz. Like, I've always liked Jojo Diaz. I liked him at 130 pounds though, and like I said, I think that was his best weight class. So even because I don't know what Regis we're gonna get. And Jojo Diaz also was very vocal about what he was going through, and he said he's clean now. Like he figured it all out, right? So Jojo Diaz is doing a lot better mentally, and also like he's not indulging in all of his vices from before. So shout out to him. So I want to see what type of Jojo Diaz we get. But if Regis Prograis loses this fight, he should retire.
I might say the same for Jojo Diaz, considering the amount of losses he had in a row. To your point, though, where I thought you were going to go with this is like Emiliano Vargas could actually fight the loser of that fight, too, and it'd be interesting, given he needs some names on his resume. Like, this was the most experienced guy he fought, and he got him out of there 42 seconds with a pull counter right hand, with the slightest pull in a pull counter. Paulie Malignaggi, by the way, had said, like, he thinks Emiliano Vargas is like a future face of boxing type of dude. And I wanted 100%. To ask what you thought about that, because I think you agree. It's not even just the fighting, but it's also, the clean suits, the shades, the look overall, the robes, obviously. Like he does feel like somebody who's going to be in main events for a while at his peak.
Yeah, and this is why I said he has that superstar quality. He has it all. He checks off every box. Emiliano Vargas is going to be one of those Vargas brothers that's going to be a massive face of boxing. And here's the thing. It's like, now we're getting to a period in time in boxing. We'll talk about this as well, because we're going to talk about the Ali Act a little bit later on. But we're getting to a point in boxing where a lot of the guys like Canelo, Bud, like they're getting older, right? You got some young guys like Dimitri Bivol's older, Beterbiev's older, Canelo's older. Like all these guys are older, and it's like, okay, who's up next? Obviously, Bam Rodriguez is there. He's a young guy. You know, Oscar Collazo. This is a Puerto Rican podcast, so we got to mention. Oscar Collazo's there, but like even Tank is like, he's 30 years old, right? Emiliano Vargas though is young, and he's coming up, and he's going to be one of those faces of boxing, and I think he's going to be polarizing, just like Oscar De La Hoya was, just like Canelo Alvarez was. Like I could see him being one of those guys.
Vargas is 21, which is scary. He's the best. So young, he's the best of the Vargas kids. Yeah, I think they're all talented, but he's clearly, like, no disrespect to the others, he's clearly the best one. He's 21. Xander's 22, about to be 23, just got his first world title. But Vargas, a year from now, he also might, because Xander's currently, I think, the youngest world champion in boxing, at least for the men.
Emiliano's going to be the youngest.
Yeah, like he could be a year from now, assuming he's not even ranked, so he needs to be like real active. And if it's Regis, first of all, if he fights Regis, it might not even be this year, so he might need another fight before that, because that fight, like, you know, I don't know if Regis is going to fight 2 more times this year. You know what I'm saying? And if you're looking at, let's just say the WBO, like, I know Jermaine Ortiz has a fight coming up. Jermaine Ortiz versus Emiliano Vargas. I can see Top Rank just calling Jermaine back. Be like, hey, you want one more bag?
Yeah.
Let's see if
I hate that for Jermaine Ortiz, though.
I don't like it either. I don't like it either. I want better for Jermaine Ortiz. I don't want him to be just an opponent. I think he's legitimately really skilled and underappreciated, and he's gotten a raw deal probably twice. I thought Lomachenko beat him, to be clear, and as a Teofimo, but I thought the scorecards were just kind of a little bit disrespectful, specifically given that Teofimo didn't do much in that fight either. Although Jermaine Ortiz could have done more. Jose Ramirez, like,
I thought about that, but I think Jose's done.
Yeah,
like I think Jose's done. Like after what we saw in that Devin Haney fight, no action at all. Like I think, and Jose Ramirez is one of my favorite fighters of all time, but I think he's done, and I think Emiliano Vargas would knock him out.
Worth noting, I agree with that. Worth noting, Liam Paro listed here. Apparently, he's moving up to welterweight. So.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently that I just saw that before we got on. That he's looking at, which I thought about it. He's like not like a huge puncher, but I thought about it and I was like, you know what? He won a title at 140, so this makes sense. And welterweight again, like Mario Barrios has a title. Manny Pacquiao almost won a title. Like Liam Paro could actually.
Can you guys believe that?
And Boots is leaving.
Yeah.
So, like, Liam Paro actually, like, he could be Liam Paro 2-division world champion. Imagine. By the way, yes, somebody mentioned Subriel Matias fighting Dalton Smith next. I think though, like, the reason I mentioned Paro is because he's number 4. He leaves, and if you're sliding everyone else up, then there's Emiliano Vargas' spot right there. Like, you could just put him right there at 15, and maybe even higher than that if you want, and you could make some fun fights out of that.
Okay, so let's go back to the rankings really quick, and let's kind of put a bow on this Emiliano Vargas talk. Brian, from the names you see there, who would you like him to fight?
Ooh.
Let's build a pathway to his title. That's what I actually want to do.
And since he's not in the WBO, he doesn't have to, like, we don't have to, like, we could pick from anywhere.
Yeah.
There's some good
I love the Jermaine Ortiz one.
Just not for Jermaine.
No, but I think that's like a really good name. Matter of fact, you might as well just fight that Canadian Steve Claggett. Hey, like, Steve Claggett was tough. All right. This is really interesting.
Here's a good one. Cletus Selden. I'm dead serious.
Or even Oscar Duarte.
I'm dead serious. Duarte fights Kenneth Sims next. Although I think he could fight the loser of that fight, not the winner, because I think.
How do you feel about Kenneth Sims, by the way? What's your take on?
It's gonna be a tricky fight for Duarte, I think.
Yeah, I don't think that's a layup for him.
I think I would angle for Emiliano to get the loser, because the winner's gonna, like, be positioned for a potential title fight or mandatory fight or like a bigger fight after. Obviously, they're Emiliano's not there yet, but I think someone like a Cletus Seldon, because he has a fun fight style, that can go toe to toe with him. But obviously, you would think Emiliano Vargas' class, like Cletus Seldon could use a big fight. And Angel Fierro, who lost to Isaac Cruz, who was supposed to get the rematch, like someone like that.
Yes, I would be down for that.
You want somebody who's been in there with some other guys, where like you need like a measuring stick fight if you're Emiliano Vargas.
By the way, since we're here, Arnold Barbosa Jr. and Alberto Puello should fight.
Ooh,
that's a great fight, dude.
We're nerds. Look at the fight we're reacting to.
We're like, oh my god, let's have a fight party. Like nobody else would have a fight party. That's a good fight.
We would do a post-fight show for that,
dude. No, we should. You know, okay. What I love,
Antonio
Delgado. You guys, but I love Lindolfo Delgado. I think he's a good fighter, and I keep on forgetting. Like I keep on forgetting that he's in this weight class for some strange reason, with all of these names, because he's not getting like massive fights.
I saw on my timeline that Emiliano Vargas apparently went back and forth with Ernesto Mercado, which
that's a good fight.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening because
that's a very good fight. It's too early for that fight
for both of them, right? Yeah,
yeah, way too early.
Luis Rodriguez is a fun name here. Michelle Rivera. There's a lot. Jakumbayev,
yeah,
who fought against Subriel Matias. Obviously,
I would
stay away from this dude. By the way, I was telling you about Araceli Alvarez ahead of the Olympics, who I bet at like plus 1,000 to win a gold medal. He's gonna go because he's Cuban and he's already like in his late. Is he in his late 20s? He might be in his mid 20s. Let me check. But he's gonna be rising up quick. He's 25 actually, so he's not as old as I thought he was. He's 5-0 already. He's gonna be really fucking good. That's who you go with Emiliano Vargas against. Not yet.
You know what? If I'm Emiliano Vargas, I'm looking at a guy like Jermaine Ortiz or Steve Claggett. Then I'm fighting a guy like Fierro. And then maybe I'm fighting a tricky fight, a tough fight like Sandor Martin. And then I'm getting a title shot.
Oh.
That would be my path.
I like that path.
I've thought about this. I've thought about this before we got on the show, guys.
Yeah, he needs like a fun ranked guy first.
Yeah, and Sandor Martin is like one of the toughest fights that any fighter can get because he's so crafty, he's so tricky, and he can win any fight. Like that's not a given that he'll win that fight.
He's a left-handed Jermaine Ortiz. Because Jermaine Ortiz, I think, is the same version of him, but orthodox. Although he does switch. He's a technician after all. To me, the most fun Emiliano Vargas fights that make sense coming up. If you're being realistic, not like pie in the sky shit, you're moving him along too quickly. I think Elvis Rodriguez is a good one. I think Cletus Seldon is a good one. I think Jakumbayev is a good one here as well. Because these are guys like you can see him go toe-to-toe with them. And then put him against somebody tricky, to your point, like a Jermaine Ortiz or a Sandor Martin, maybe. If I'm Arnold Barbosa, I don't want this fight, but I could see them calling him and being like, yo, like, you know, this could be a pathway for you to get back into, you know, title contention. But I also think Barbosa could easily fight like Alberto Puello, as you mentioned. And I think that's a of all the fights we just talked about, that's a fucking great fight that you made. Like a great hypothetical. Fight. Both guys who just lost title opportunities where it's like, okay, if you win, you can get right back into the title picture. And if you lose, you might start getting fed. You might start, you know, getting fed to prospects now. Puello versus Barbosa is great. And then the loser would fight Emiliano Vargas after he wins his next fight.
Yeah, that's a tough fight. And like Emiliano Vargas, like the way that he's fighting right now, and he's still very, very young, and we have a small sample size, but he's going to be that guy in this division, and he's going to have a title. Like he's going to be that good, and we're going to be talking about him a little bit more. Foxy says, "Is Arthur Canadian?" I can never pronounce his last name. He is because he fought at the Pan Am Games.
Arslanov?
Yes.
I might be Americanizing it a little bit.
Arslanov. I don't know. I can't say it. However, he fought for Canada at the Pan Am Games. I think, when was it? I think it was before COVID. Pretty sure he did.
Could have been 2019. The Pan Am Games did happen in 2019. I think also 2017. So
2015. 2015
also. Yeah.
Okay, so it might have been 2015 if I remember correctly, because I do remember watching it on television. Now, all right, guys, we got to get to.
See in these rankings?
Yeah, number 10 for the WBA, is it?
Not the WBC. BC. Yeah. That's an interesting fight too.
And he's good too.
Interesting that the WBC is 3 and 6 vacant.
Listen, anybody could jump up into those rankings. Bryan, do you have any final thoughts before we move on to Claressa Shields? Because we still got to talk about the Ali Act.
I think they have them vacant because Subriel Matias might have been 3 before he beat Alberto Puello, and they're trying to figure out what to do with Alberto Puello. I don't have much on this. I think we can hit Claressa Shields because the Ali Act we'll touch on it because it's not a story that's going away. We just want to sort of set the stage for that because that's coming rapidly.
We might have a lot to say about it, to be honest. We might be here for another half an hour, guys. So get a glass of water or whatever maybe you're eating popcorn. I don't know, but get a snack. Now, we're going to talk about Claressa Shields first because I think this is really important. She fought Lani Daniels earlier this past weekend, and it ended up going the distance. She didn't get the stoppage. She didn't get the knockout, but she did sell out Little Caesars Arena. It was her last fight with Salida Promotions, which is obviously the biggest news. She is a free agent now. She was on Ariel Helwani's show. And remember, she also said on Andre Ward's show, I think it was Andre Ward's show. No, it was The Pivot. That her and Papoose have decided they're going to have kids. And this is going to happen next. She's going to take time off and have a family. And then she said she wanted, I don't know, someone's bumping music out here that you could clearly hear.
I didn't hear anything.
Okay, I heard it really loud and clear. However,
well, let's not get flagged.
yeah, no. HLD, do we have to talk about her? What? Yes, we do. Come on. She's one of the greatest.
This will be brief because honestly, there ain't much has changed the situation. To your point,
yeah,
we both think she should fight. We both think she should fight the same person next. So there's that.
That is true. I think there's 2 names though. Obviously Shadasia Green, right?
Shadasia Green, yeah.
And Franchon.
Oh, well, because they went back and forth. Okay, yeah, to be fair, we had Franchon on the show, and she said, I want that rematch because last time I didn't get time to prepare. It was a short notice or whatever. Like, she was at a very different, she was making her debut too. Now Franchon Cruz has been a champion. Franchon Cruz Dezern has been a champion, has been in bigger fights, has beat top-level competition, has hung with top-level competition. But Shadasia Green just beat Savannah Marshall.
On that MVP card,
yes,
which was the biggest women's card, and that brings the conversation towards who is Claressa Shields going to sign with, Bryan? Do you think she signs with MVP? But it just doesn't seem like there's a good rapport there, right?
They said they'd be open to doing business with her, though. At the presser that I was at, which could be, could always be
a one fight deal or something like that, where she does have a big fight on an MVP card.
Business could also be she re-ups with Salida, who's been with her, and they collaborate on a card centered around Claressa Shields versus Shadasia Green, where you can get a whole bunch of other women. Franchon Cruz Dezern is with Salida. You could put her up against somebody else. You know what I mean? Like there's a collaborative effort to be done there. Salida Promotions signed more women recently. MVP just signed more women recently. Like they're cornering the market on women's boxing because that other dude ain't. So they're being.
And we're going to talk about that other dude. We're going to talk about that other dude.
We should say it's not just one person. It's several.
Okay.
No, for real. It's just
to be fair.
Yeah. And it's more interesting than this, so we'll breeze through this. But I think with Claressa Shields, there are not a ton of options. I also think, if you are a woman, there is a window in which you want to have children. She is, I believe, 30 now. My understanding is that the window is between 30 and 35 I've been educated on that for obvious reasons.
I mean, you could have one later. Now women are like, obviously it would be
it's
a
just
geriatric.
riskier.
Yeah, it would be a geriatric pregnancy, right? If you have it after 35. However, it's like more women now, I'm sorry guys, more women now are having babies in their like late 30s and 40s than ever. Like it's crazy actually that's happening. So it's not like it can't happen if you're over 35,
Right.
but like that's a good time. Even if you're in between 30 and 35, like you might have problems getting pregnant. Anyways, this is taking a weird turn for the show.
I don't think it's weird at all. And Papoose is also 47. You know, like
yeah, but it doesn't matter for guys though.
No, I know, but like you don't want to be
an old dad.
Yeah, because if you're 47 now, let's say Papoose gets her pregnant now. Okay. Yes. This is why you come and listen to this show. Let's say he gets her pregnant now and they have the baby 9 months from now. Papoose will be 48, which means when their child is 18, he's going to be 66. That's what you don't want. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're Papoose, you're probably like, this could be his idea for all we know. I don't know. But like, you might want to do this sooner as opposed to later. And if you're Claressa Shields, you're like right in that sweet spot. And she's done a lot of shit that she can. Like, I honestly don't think if she were to get pregnant now and were to be sidelined, I don't think people would say she's ducking the competition because with respect to Shadeja Green, who obviously has earned the opportunity, I don't think people would say, oh, she has to fight Shadeja Green or she's tainted forever. I think it's also a fight you can circle back to, you know, after she becomes a mother and, you know, is able to get back to, you know, in-ring shape, because that's a process too. Like it's a long process. I've spoken to obviously many women about this, one of whom, Bria Hartley, when I covered the Liberty in 2017, she had just had a kid and came back like weeks later into training camp, didn't have the greatest season, but the fact that she got through the season, you know, like that's just not easy. And she was in her 20s, you know what I mean? She wasn't in her 30s yet.
Yeah, so, dude, that's the crazy part though, is like, and Claressa Shields says like while she's pregnant, she's still going to be trying to keep like not put on too much weight and be training. Here's the thing is like their body is never going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's like no matter what, no matter how much you train, no matter like you could still be great. Like look at Skylar Diggins, like this season, like this is basketball though, right? Remember she took some time off, had a kid, came back, like had a decent season, but like this season is like one of her best seasons.
Serena Williams is obviously a famous example.
So, you know, and your body's like never the same after. So Claressa Shields is saying she wants a couple of kids, that she was saying, not just one. She wants like a family with Papoose. And so, you know, she might take a long layoff, whatnot, but it's really interesting. But I think if there was a big fight to come on the table, and here's the thing too, you can't just say, I want a baby, I'm going to have one this year. Like it just doesn't work like that, right? Like she has to try, like they have to try. And Papoose is older, right? So
he has to get his shit checked. You know what I'm saying? To make sure
do his boys swim? We don't know. Right? Like, we don't know, guys. Okay, we will be finding out. And also, if I'm Remy Ma, I'm just kicking myself in the ass, right? Like she got it the worst, yo. And she's like at the fights and stuff. Like she was at the Shakira fight and she was sitting on the other side with Fat Joe. Remember? Because Edgar Berlanga.
Yeah.
Yes. So I remember she was on the other side. Like it must suck to be Remy Ma right now. Like that's terrible.
They had a kid?
They did have a kid.
They did, yeah.
It was all over Love and Hip Hop. Yeah. Which sucks because like
I didn't watch Love and Hip Hop.
It was a good
I know you did.
That's how I know everything. How do you think I know everything, you guys? All right. Let's go to HLD. I don't know if I want to say this because it's kind of mean. HLD.
I'm not gonna say it.
So we'll put it up on the screen for you guys to read, and we'll take it right off.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat that.
Any final thoughts, Brian, before we get out of here?
To answer your question, Foxy, yes, Papoose has performed alphabetical slaughter for Claressa Shields. I think it was her fight against Danielle Perkins. Yeah, I want to say it was that fight because that was the first fight that they had when they were together, publicly at least. And they said Papoose was going to be performing, and they were like. And I was like, what song is he going to fucking perform? Funny.
Foxy said, will the baby advice be a weekly?
if you want. What other boxing show?
Yeah. They're not going to break it down to you like this, you know?
Well, yeah, a lot of them don't have women. and also men who value women. You
True,
know,
true. That's true. Okay.
Not all of them do. If we're being totally honest, I'm sure some do, but they're
Anyways, what were you
they're in a
saying?
whole
Sorry
lot.
to cut you off there.
No, I was just saying, like, what other song was Papoose gonna walk her out to? Like that's kind of it's alphabetical slaughter, and like he had Born to Win and Madden. What was that? 06? I'm
That
showing
was
my
a hot
age.
song, though. That was a hot song,
It
man.
was.
Yeah.
He had like a but. I know
No,
mixtape
Pap
Papoose.
had like Pap mixtape Pap was
I
pretty
know
good.
I know mixtape Papoose, but he's not performing the freestyle, the Hail Mary freestyle, which came out 22 years ago on a Claressa Shields, entrance. He's not performing his remix of. I'm pretty sure he did Who Shot Ya. Like, you know what I mean? He has to
On
perform
the Control
alphabetical stuff.
remix, remember when Kendrick put out Control,
Well,
and then
everyone did.
everyone hopped on
Yeah.
Control. He had that Control
He's
remix.
not performing Head of State and bringing out Saigon, to do his parts. I don't even know where Saigon is at this point.
No,
but
exactly.
I like when we like just go into all these other things where it's like, listen, the bag is deep on this show.
Yeah.
Ryan says Claressa Shields' walkouts have been getting more entertaining. The broadcast really went directly from Rick Ross walking her out to them singing "Lift Every Voice and Sing."
So inspirational,
Rick Ross bringing her out I felt like a little random, but that was cool.
I've never just been a Rick Ross fan. I don't know why. Because he used to be a correctionals officer.
Is that why?
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
But I did. No, I think
it's because he was doing that and then rapped about what he rapped about. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Because remember the Port of Miami album, which was actually really good.
Yeah,
like
really
that's
good.
A hot album, dude. Like that is a fire album, right? And so everything that he was rapping about, and then we found out he was a correctionals officer, and there's like photos of him in like a uniform, like
stole his name also.
Yeah. And so I've always been a bigger Jeezy fan. Anyways, that's not the point. I don't know
if you have to be one or the other necessarily, but
I am, because I feel like you either really rock with Rick Ross or you really rock with Jeezy.
Interesting.
That's what I think. Like, I really think, because they used to have beef too.
So did 50 and Ross. That's the one I remember more.
Yeah. And I would pick 50 over Ross.
So would I. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I'm just saying. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of Rick Ross. Every time like he comes up on a feature, I just skip.
All right, damn. Like what?
I just skip his verse. I just changed the song. No, really, I did that all the time. I don't know why. I'm just not a Ross fan. I think it's
admittedly I skip his part on 16 because Andre 3000 is one of the best verses I've ever heard on any rap song ever on 16, which is a Rick Ross song. But Andre 3000 just like totally made it his own. Okay. We should talk about the Ali Act briefly before we get out of here.
Okay, so you guys, this is what we've kind of wanted to wait on the show to talk about, because it is a pretty big deal. Also because it's going to change boxing as we know it. Like, boxing's not going to be the same. And I said earlier, Bryan, boxing's not going to be the same in like 10, 15 years. And Bryan said, nope, sooner. So if you're not aware what the Ali Act is, pretty much it's short for the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act. So what this act actually does, it's a U.S. federal law that was passed in 2000 to protect the rights and safety of professional boxers. Right. So pretty much to bring fairness and transparency, and also it's to help promoters as well. Right. So promoters pretty much have to disclose all financial deals, including what they're making and what the boxer is making. This is part of the Ali Act. There's also a ban on conflict of interest. So promoters can't also act as managers, because obviously then the promoter is manipulating the boxer. So it does protect the boxer, this specific act. Also, contract limits. So it protects the boxer as well in terms of being, locked into a very long-term deal. Like, it prevents them from that. There's also fair rankings. Boxing organizations must provide written objective criteria for writing to prevent boxers from being, treated unfairly. And so it pretty much it's supposed to take out the corruption from boxing and protect. Right, because we know how the WBA is. Let's be serious.
All of them have had their issues.
But the WBA does it on live television where they're just being corrupt as hell every time.
We have three world champions, not one per division.
But nonetheless, that's the Ali Act, right? So I don't know if you guys have heard, but right now there has been a bill that has been sent to Congress, Bryan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's not passed yet, but it likely will. I don't see why it won't.
And what they want to do is they want to get rid of the Ali Act because there is a company called TKO that wants to officially kind of control everything. And let me kind of break it down because it's a little bit confusing and there's a lot of layers to it. Yeah. And Bryan will be actually helping me break it down as well because he's more intelligent than me. But essentially, no, it's true. But if you want me to explain it to you in a way that I will understand, which will be the easiest way, is that TKO is obviously a company with Turk, and we've seen what Turk is doing right now, right? He's given us all those big fights. People are excited. He's putting things in Saudi. The fans are like, got these like rose colored goggles on, and they're like, we're getting the fights. We're getting the fights. This is great. What's really happening though? That's the question. So if they get rid of the Ali Act, essentially what people can do is there can be like a boxing organization. But for you to be a boxing organization, you have to check off boxes of a criteria. Like you have to have training facilities. You can have your own rankings. You can have your own titles. You have to have all of these things though. And a lot of these boxing organizations don't actually have that. And with that, you have to have money, right? So when you think about smaller promoters, for example, like Salida Promotions, they wouldn't be able to be a promotional company because they wouldn't be able to fit under an organization like that, right? And so Foxy, who is our UK correspondent, says basically it's Dana White trying to ruin the sport. You can see them trying to remove all the belts. Okay, yes, that's a part of it. But essentially it's like they're trying to have like a UFC in boxing.
Yes.
So that's a shorter way that you can kind of understand it. But the bigger layer of it is that a lot of these smaller promotional companies are not going to be what they are. And it's just going to be one big banner that's going to be controlling everything. And also, if there are two boxing organizations, say there is another boxing organization, an umbrella, and they can provide training facilities and they can have their own rankings and promoters and all this stuff. If they're a part of that boxing organization, they can't fight against the other boxing organization.
Right.
That's another part of it.
Right.
So it's like, for example, if Jaron Boots Ennis was on one side and Virgil Ortiz was on one side, they wouldn't be able to fight each other because they're under different umbrellas.
Right.
So the game changes then. Yeah. And it's kind of trying to make all these boxers be a part of one umbrella and be under one guy that's controlling everything. Bryan, you can take it from here.
So they want to introduce UBOs, Unified Boxing Organizations. And the Ali Act, we should say, at its core, it's meant for good, but obviously it hasn't, like, it's probably something that needs updating. Even Lou DiBella, who helped create it, has said that. But there are certain protections in there that are damning if they're not here anymore. Shantelle mentioned one of the most important ones, which is where this is essentially all intended, as I understand it, giving a pathway for TKO to eventually take over, because TKO wants to take over combat sports. They already have the UFC and they have the WWE. What those two entities have in common, as somebody who follows both of them, especially WWE since I was a child, are they have monopolized their sports, their respective sports. The WWE, as people know, pro wrestling, Vince McMahon bought like every territory possible in the 1980s. Like when the WWF was coming along, and if you don't know or if you don't recall or whatever, like at the time, there was a healthy territory system in the United States in pro wrestling where you had world-class championship wrestling in Dallas. You had Georgia championship wrestling, obviously in Georgia. You had Florida championship wrestling, obviously in Florida. You had different promotions in the Midwest. You had different the AWA, by the way, in Minnesota, and in the Midwest. You had in the West Coast different promotions. The WWF was nicknamed New York because a lot of their earlier promotions obviously were in the Northeast before they eventually went national and global. But that's essentially what it was. And then Vince, little by little, bought his competition piece by piece by piece. And eventually the WWF successfully monopolized pro wrestling to where you basically needed to get to quote unquote New York to really make money and have an opportunity. Once the 1990s came along, like they had basically taken over, and it was them and WCW who had broke away from the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, where a lot of these territories did, take place under that banner with Bill Watts. And with the WWF, they ended up, at the time, WWF, they ended up competing with WCW, and at the end, they bought WCW. Same thing with ECW, when formerly Eastern Championship Wrestling, more famously Extreme Championship Wrestling, they went bankrupt in 2001. WWF got their library, and like they basically got to the point where they had everything and they had to create their own competition. The NWA then had TNA, and TNA went on a run for a while, and now they have a working relationship with WWE, ironically enough. And WWE's only main competition is AEW. And even as recently as the 2000s and 2010s, like you had a healthy, or somewhat healthy at least, independent scene where Ring of Honor existed, where Chikara Pro existed, where all these different independent wrestling entities existed, a lot of which don't anymore. And now the wrestling business is primarily WWE, AEW, and then like in this country, and then overseas you can go to like New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWC, World Wrestling Council in Puerto Rico, all these different things. But they monopolize wrestling, where it's like you basically have to go there to like do anything worth a shit. The only reason AEW exists is because the Khans have a shit ton of money, and Tony Khan always wanted to make a wrestling promotion, and he's doing it. That's just a rare instance. In MMA, which more of you may be familiar with, the UFC is completely taken over, to the point where my boxing partner today in my class was like, I watch UFC. And I thought of this because a lot of people don't say they watch MMA, they watch UFC, like how they watch WWE, not pro wrestling, although some people might say pro wrestling. UFC successfully, we remember all the promotions. We remember Pride Championships. You know what I mean? For example, we remember Bellator, which no longer like really exists. We remember Strike Force. We remember Elite XC, like Affliction, and the UFC little by little just got so powerful. And there's like no real regional MMA scene worth a shit right now. PFL is trying to do its best on a grand level, and they had the ESPN deal, but they monopolize that. So basically, that's a long-winded way of getting to where the future of boxing could be, which is what I think TKO envisions, which I talked about previously here on my channel, which we've talked about or hinted at a little bit, but we can see their plan is to probably have their own titles, like the TKO championship or the Sella championship or the Zuffa boxing championships or whatever, like every weight class, the way UFC does, and to make it very hard for the sanctioning bodies and the other promoters, because they're going to have all this money hand over fist. The boxers will eventually get paid a lot less, because they're starting at the top with these top guys, Canelo, Crawford, like all these dudes. They're going to cash them out. And then once they're trying to build out on the ground level, these guys are not going to make shit. And this is where they're going to have a structure that I think is like the UFC, because the UFC, the house keeps whatever it is, 80%, 82%, whatever it is. They're going to want to do the same thing, because we all know them paying out the money that they're paying out for these big fights is not sustainable. Like Turkey and all this, like it's not sustainable. I don't care how much money you have and where it's from. And eventually billionaires will figure out how to save money so they can keep being billionaires. And what we're staring at in the face is potentially going to shake up like how business is done. We have comments from Eddie Hearn in the Story of Boxing Scene about this, where he says changing it is not a good look. Shout out to Tyrone for the super chat, by the way. Pride was way better than the UFC. A lot of people would agree with that. Any chance ECW? We'll get to some other comments too. We'll just read Eddie Hearn's real quick comments about this, and then I'll toss it back to you, Shantelle, because I've gone too long. But he called it not a good look. He said on Monday that promoters, need to respect fighters. Asked whether the changes would give promoters more power, he responded, yeah, but I don't think we need more power in the promoter's hands. I think we need to respect the fighter. And I think that act is nearly always there to protect the fighter and make sure they're not being taken advantage of, which a lot of people think will happen once this takes place and gets passed. And I think going back to Eddie Hearn, I think to try and change that act or get it slung out isn't a good look from a fighter's perspective, who already like don't have a union. It's hard getting health care, like all these different things. And this could make things a lot more difficult. So he also adds here, if I went out and came to you now and said, by the way, I'm coming to abolish the Ali Act because that's there to protect fighters. I don't want to protect fighters. I want to do what I want to do at any time. I get so much stick. And this is really what's happening kind of behind closed doors, but now it's becoming public. The fighters I've spoken to have certainly raised a lot of eyebrows saying, why are you trying to abolish an act that is there to protect us? And it's probably not a great look. And then on Zuffa, TKO, whatever we're calling it, specifically for those guys, it's not about ownership and control, said Hearn. And I get it, but it doesn't work like that in boxing. You're not going to operate in a world where fighters do as they're told or do as you think they should do, unless it's fighters of a particular level. And when I look at the recruitment of the league, because they want this to become a league, even though they're dancing around it, so to speak, but this is probably going to be a boxing league. The fighters they're talking to and the fighters that I know that they've signed, they are fighters that would do whatever TKO wanted to do because of the opportunity. For the bigger names, for the bigger fruits, they're just not going to do that. And fighters aren't designed to just do as they're told, as we all know. They have their own brains, they have their own opinion, and they have a team of people that are there to structure a career of a fighter with a promoter. Shantelle, your thoughts?
So also keep in mind, guys, because they are kind of trying to build a UFC type of model here, and the fighters don't get paid. And this is something that's known. Like, they don't get paid a lot. They get paid pennies compared to what they should be getting. And also keep in mind, when it comes to revenue share, I believe the UFC with their fighters only get about 19%, 18, 19%. It's under 20%, I believe. Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. And it's true, like, once they get, you know, the big fighters, the big name fighters, the Canelos, the Bud Crawfords, once they're out of the picture, you have like a tier of boxers that are trying to build a name, make some money, and come up, and you're trying to build this league. It's going to change a lot of things. And obviously the Ali Act isn't perfect, and there needs to be some amendments still made, because I think with all type of policies and all types of acts, because the world is always changing, there needs to be some amendments made, right? Always.
Or some things enforced.
Yes.
Like some like the rankings point specifically, like, you know, we still look at the rankings now and we're like, how did that happen? Where some things in the Ali Act need to be more enforced than anything else, I think.
I will say this, though. The one thing that I wouldn't mind, and because I can't be all negative, right? It can't be all cons. I wouldn't mind a system where everything is under one banner, in a sense of like the belts, like only one champion. I'm okay with there being more, just one champion, because I think it's easier for people to follow. Because when I'm trying to explain what a super champion is to one of my friends, they're like, what is that? Right? There's too many different boxing organizations right now, and it makes things a little bit confusing. I wouldn't mind there just being one champion at 175 pounds. One heavyweight champion. But the thing is, like, I know that some people might not want that, and if it doesn't happen like that, that's fine. But I do think for that type of brand, it does work well, and it's easier to follow. And I think maybe boxing could use that, but that's the only pro I can really think of right now when I read all this.
I mean, UFC has their own titles. The WWE has their own titles. Although the WWE has had for a lot of the last 20, almost 25 years, have had multiple world championships. Like the WWE title, the world title. At one point, they also had the ECW championship, where they brought it back from like 2006 to 2010. So I think boxing is so big that I don't think you need to have just one champion if they're controlling boxing. Like, this is what they're going to do. Like, they've done it with the UFC. The UFC has one champion per weight class because it's a UFC, like, it's a promotion. It's a league, quote unquote. If this is going to be a league, then they're going to have a champion. But the thing is, like, the sanctioning bodies like the WBC and the WBO and the WBA and IBF will still exist. You know what I mean? Like they're still going to have their lineage and their history. There's just going to be this new thing. And, they're obviously like TKO is going to try to corner the market and get as many fighters as possible as they've been doing.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to get like fighters and ambassadors and prospects and all these tournaments, because this is staging like, before we get into like what this could be. And this clearly looks like Dana White, and not just him, because there are other players in this as well, but Dana White, among others, trying to replicate the UFC business model in boxing. He's been lusting and wanting to get into boxing forever. And now he has a cash cow to do it with and a company backing him to do it with, who trusts him implicitly because TKO has already cornered two big global combat sports in MMA and pro wrestling, and they could do it with boxing, which is a global sport as well.
And here's the thing, that this is the scary part, guys, is that TKO actually has a lot of power. I want to go to this one comment and then we're going to elaborate on what I just said. HLD, good friend of the show, says Turkey already tells everyone what to do across all promoters and fighters. Here's the thing, though. Turkey's throwing around all this money, like making all these fights. Everyone's got these like rose-colored goggles on about Turk making these fights. All those promoters he's working with, he's going to take them out of business.
Unless they figure out how to get jobs in this company.
TKO thing. But even then, they're not. But then it's like, do you think Oscar De La Hoya is going to be working at TK? Like, I don't know, but he's
managing fighters, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe, but he's going to take a lot of people out of business. And here's another aspect of it, right? Because we know Dana White has a relationship with Donald Trump. And this is where things get a little bit more interesting, because this bill has not been passed yet. It's been sent to Congress. But I do expect it to be passed. But they do have a relationship. And Bryan actually said something really interesting to me a couple of maybe a week ago. And I never thought about it. But I'm also not like immersed there in New York where things were happening, right? So when the Times Square thing happened, the first thing Bryan said when the news came out, he was like, how are they going to do this? Like, how are they going to get the city to pass this? Like, Times Square is so busy. There's so much stuff going on there. Like, how is this even going to happen? Like, and then Bryan, like, I'll let you take it from here and like tell everyone. And this is why we should do a Patreon, but nonetheless. But you said something really interesting to me the other day on why all of that was able to pass and why that was all able to happen. Also, why the mayor is very important in this whole thing as well.
You could just look at who talks to who, right? Like, okay, Turk and Dana are working together. Dana's tight with Trump. Trump has recently put the mayor of New York City in his back pocket, Eric Adams, which is why there's so much investment from the right to keep Zoran Mamdani out of office in New York City, who's the Democratic mayoral candidate and likely potential winner to become the mayor of New York City in November, as many people hope. And, like Eric Adams, him being the mayor of New York City is not nothing, considering like the sort of relationships here. I think with and that's just on a small scale thing as it pertains to New York, but it gives you a large scale view of like, yeah, Dana White is in constant. This is why we think it's going to pass, because Dana White, like, he has legitimate political friends. And the one political dude, like if you watch a UFC event, who do they walk out every fucking time? Like with Kid Rock, and like it's like its own thing. It's like part of the show where it's like, all right, now we're gonna do the Trump entrance. You know what I mean? And people cheer him, boo him, whatever. I have my own thoughts on that, obviously, but I think as it pertains to like the relationships, like they're going to get a lot of what they want because the friends are in high places, so to speak. Like you have to look at who's polying with who, to use an old school term, who's working with who in that regard. And this goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of all of this. Everyone, really, I said this because you wouldn't word it this way, but this goes back to every promoter in boxing opening their legs for Turki Al-Sheikh from the beginning. Money, 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 money. Everyone is just so blinded by money that they didn't realize in some ways they may have been handing over their own careers. Maybe some guys are gonna like they're like good with that. They can cash out, do other things. Eddie Hearn, Foxy mentioned, is super talented. I don't know what his future will hold. Maybe he'll try to continue to exist. Maybe he'll, I don't know if he's going to lead a resistance. He could do something else. He's got connections. He's got money. Obviously in the UK, he's powerful. Also, Oscar De La Hoya. Obviously, we know he's he's Oscar De La Hoya, and he's going to be Oscar De La Hoya forever. Whatever. Frank Warren's an OG's been doing this forever. He could probably sail off into the sunset. Bob Arum is 90 plus. He's another one who could sail off into the sunset. He could have retired 20 years ago. You know, like, but I don't know if the promoters are going to get together and try to fight this. There's people saying, hey, you can call your local congressperson to try to like go against this. I don't know if you're going to build up enough support for that because there's so much money and influence in what's going on.
Read Foxy's
at the
comment
top
right
level.
Here. This is a good comment. Do you think there could ever be a case of any one group of people going up against TKO as competition, or would it just be a quick loser?
Great question. One answer could be Jake Paul and Nikisa Bidarian. Yeah. But Jake Paul also supports Dude in the White House and has in the past, at the very least. So I don't know to what degree that's going to happen. Like, what friction is that going to cause? Are they actually going to work together at some point? I don't know. It could be a loser if there's not enough money in whatever that coalition is. I think ultimately you need to get a lot of people. It's like with anything else where it's like, if you're trying to go against like a very powerful regime, you need numbers, you need people willing to do it. And I think right now, a lot of people just kind of either want the money or they're scared to speak out on certain things. You know what I mean? And
I think that's the biggest thing. I think they're scared to speak out on things, and
they don't. And some people don't feel like they can because they haven't worked themselves into a point of their life or their careers where like, yo, I kind of can't take this risk right now because I'm here and I need to get to a certain level of influence here. You know, and the other thing is look at the boxers. Like, what boxer is standing up against Turk right now? Tim Tszyu tried, but he's Tim Tszyu.
Yeah.
Gervonta Davis is trying, has done it, but like he can't get out of his own way, and he looks like he's going to leave the sport any minute. We don't know. But Terrence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol, now Inoue, they've all signed deals with this dude in some way, shape, or form. They've all done business with this dude. So like the power has been handed over, and it's just a matter of like how this is ultimately going to go.
Yeah, and let's get to this comment by Ryan Shepard as well, who says, side note, them having a card at the White House is insane. It is going to be very, very interesting, but this is not good for the sport of boxing, guys. It's
long term. Because I think short term, a lot of people will see like, oh shit, Canelo Crawford and, you know, big fight after big fight. Like, again, we said this before, like it's going to look good in the short term, but long term, the ramifications are going to be damning. Like, look at where UFC is right now. Like, UFC is not as hot. It's still like attention getting, but it's become this complete, like it's not at the product it was a few years ago. A lot of the top guys that people loved left. They're not making stars at the rate that they used to. It's also become very catered to one specific audience more than others. Yeah. And it's just not the same product as it was like even pre-COVID, let's say. You know, the WWE has never had as many sponsors as it does now, like on the ring. The product has been entertaining, but at the same time, I think there are people that have some questions about their affiliations. And then here, boxing is boxing. Boxing's always been dirty, and now we'll see. Like, we'll see. There's a lot more. Like, this is not going away. The story is. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, so. And you guys, it's going to get more intense. Like, this bill should probably be signed in a few weeks. I don't know. Like, it could be longer, but it's probably going to get passed. And that's going to change things. And then we're going to see things change throughout the year. So we're probably going to be talking about this quite a bit as the changes come about. But nonetheless, it's something to keep an eye on. And boxing is never going to be the same once that bill is passed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the sad part about it and the scary part about it. And I don't know how you guys feel about one person or a couple of dudes having all of that control over all of combat sports. because that's what it will be.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a product given to us by those same two people that are controlling the sport. And when they have that much influence and that much power, that much influence and that much power is never good. And history tells us that. I'll say that much.
Yeah. And it's also like, Nick Khan, Ari Emanuel, Ari Emanuel, CEO of Endeavor.
And guys, as we go,
folded into all this. CEO of TKO's Mark Shapiro, not to be confused with the CEO of the Toronto Blue Jays, I believe. But there's just all these moving parts. And to be honest with you, and this is the other thing, this is why we felt the need to talk about this. And you've been watching this whole time, like, thank you. But like a lot of boxing shows are not going to talk about this because a lot of boxing shows want to be affiliated with this, want to get jobs at Ring, want to go cover cards in Saudi or whatever. Like, that's their prerogative. But like, we want to make sure that first and foremost we're putting forth a good show, but that we're also being responsible about how this is being covered. Because I think a lot of people in boxing now, like, there's not a lot of journalism in the sport and around the sport anymore. It's a lot of just content creators, so to speak. And there's not a lot of interesting conversation. It's just a lot of like, just you either love or hate this fighter or you love or hate this person. It's just stan culture folded into the sport. So we felt like it was definitely important to cover this because a lot of people aren't. Shout out to Hey Not the Face. They're covering it. Luke Thomas is covering it. Not a lot of entities are. I'm sure Boxing Scene will. We read their article. Boxing Scenes went head to head with them before. Like, there are outlets out there. But yeah, so I think the coverage that you see from this, just be careful where it's coming from because a lot of it is probably not going to be dishonest, and I think a lot of people won't touch it anyway, depending on who their affiliations are with.
Yeah, so, and just remember that the Ring magazine has now become propaganda.
Yeah,
it's like pure propaganda. So it's like you can't believe everything that you read, but you are going to obviously have those outlets that are going to tell you the truth. And like before we hopped on and we said we were going to talk about this, if you follow this show, then I think you kind of know where Bryan and I stand on this. If you've seen any of our show, and I kind of told Bryan before we hopped on talking about this, that listen, it's good that we do other stuff in the business. Because if they're controlling every aspect and controlling the broadcast, you probably may never see Bryan and I on one of those things. So just going to make that point there.
On that note, while we get out of here, support us on our other stuff. Chantel's doing a great job covering the Raiders, Locked On Raiders, squad shows and more. And also sidelines for the Seattle Storm during the WNBA. Seattle Storm trying to make a playoff push. She's there at every home game, chronicling Skylar Diggins, Nneka Ogwumike, the rise of Dominique Malonga. It's finally happening. And on my channels, a lot of stuff at New York Post sports section, not news, because I have to make that clarification for a lot of different people. Also Action Network, though right now we're taking a step back because it's the off season, but we'll be on Buckets doing NBA stuff once the NBA comes back around, and on my own channel where I'm talking about stuff like this, and we'll be doing more basketball stuff. FIBA coming up, and on my channel I'm doing a trade deadline special.
You're doing a trade deadline?
Trade deadline special for baseball.
Hop on the trade deadline. Can't wait to watch the trade deadline. By the way, lots of movement.
So if you support us on our own feeds and our own things, it helps us do this show and continue to do this show because this is what we do for a living. Like we do stuff like this. So wanted to put that out there as well. If you're watching still, and feel free to donate to the show like Tyrone did.
All right, guys, we'll be back with some more content probably next week. But thanks so much for rocking out with us. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Share it to one of your friends as well. And thanks so much for hanging out with us on this Wednesday night. We'll be back. We appreciate you guys. And yeah, we'll be back next week.